don't know, the more I think about it, it's like relatively.
We're live. We're live.
I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to order. At this time, we'll have a roll call.
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Here.
Director Harris.
Here.
Director Hollibush.
Here.
Director Brewer is absent. Director Jewell.
Here.
Director Hart.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, we'll stand for our invocation, which will be given by Director Danny Jewell. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our City Planner, Ms. Mary Bay.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we bless our agenda to be fruitful and for the common good. Also grant that our mayor and we, the city board, will have ears to listen to the people we serve and wisdom to act for the betterment of our community. Lastly, we ask you bless all those in need of your special touch. These things we pray. Amen.
Amen. Respect. One last time.
Surprise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. At this time, we'll move right on into our citizens communication time. There are citizens communication cards on the ledge. If you wish to address the board, we'd appreciate you filling one of those out. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to address the board tonight for citizens communication time? Anyone in the audience? Anyone else wish to address the board tonight? Director Harris.
I need to finish my presentation. I guess this was started 2 boards meetings ago, so I should be about finished this time. And I think I had talked about that sidewalk, so you can go ahead and go to the next one, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, yeah, and I think that was the email about a driveway that was done in another, it was done because I had made reference as to why the city did not do that driveway that was previously shown, but that was the email. I don't think you cannot see it, and I doesn't have it to give the location of it, but you go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, and that was I guess a covet that, but I noticed about 2 weeks ago the city had done that. This was requested, I think, last year, but I noticed that Public Works had went on ahead and done that. I guess they don't want me bringing this up for 2 years like I did the one that was before on the corner of 9th Street and Laurel Street, but they did do this one now, so that's been completed. Go to the next one. Okay, and I think this is the sidewalk, in reference to the sidewalk I've been trying to get done on Pinehurst Street. Now, I think I've been talking about this for the last maybe 3 or 4 years now. They came and did this little section about a year, I think about 2 years ago from the projects back there up to Grove Street. But you go ahead and do the next one. But I was trying to get them complete all the way up to Pinehurst, up to Dudley Street. You can go ahead and do the next one, I'm trying to go ahead and finish that. And the reason why I'm doing that, you can see that the people, they will walk in the road there. They doesn't walk in the street there. They doesn't have a way where they can walk on the road, but like I said, the city could go ahead and finish that up, because like I said, that's been the last, if I'm not mistaken, I know at least 3 or 4 years I have requested this, and if the city was just to do just this section here about a year or something ago, and this here from Grove to Washington Street, go ahead and do the next one.
That's it.
Okay, if they wouldn't want ahead and do the one, I would just won't just do a section at a time, you know, you ain't saying you ain't got a whole lot of money, but just do a section at a time because the traffic count on that street there, if I'm not mistaken, they have a little thing, and I think it's like 1,200, so there is a busy intersection there. And I don't know what reason why they couldn't do it, but, and like I said, and I don't know reason like they couldn't do it. Now, I guess I didn't have the other, picture on up by the housing there, but they were saying they couldn't move the pole, but I noticed that you can just go around the pole and just do that. But I hope, I don't see a member of Public Works here, but I would ask Tyler if he was here as to what's the rationale as to why the city could not go ahead and complete that sidewalk there. But that's basically what it is. That, and I know it took me 3 boards meeting to do this presentation here. And hopefully somewhere down the line, if they pass that ordinance, that I think resolution tonight, I may wouldn't have to sit up here doing sales communication time, and I guess I'm just go ahead and finish up, use my 1 minute and stuff. But I don't think that it wouldn't took me no more than 15 minutes to do this presentation. But that's basically it that I really was talking about. Oh, and the other issue is Pinehurst Street, while I'm up here. The last time Pinehurst Street was done back in, if I'm not mistaken, back in 97. And that street is real bad, and I hope during this budget process that it will be looked at and see can they do Pinehurst Street again, because really from Pinehurst all the way up to Dudley Street, because the last time that street was done, if I'm not mistaken, was back in 97, and I don't know what the cost it would be. So, but that's my last comment about this, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishes to address the board during citizens' communication time? Anyone else? If not, we'll move into proclamation. Tonight we have a proclamations for Park and Recreation Month. I'll read that, then I'll ask our Parks Director, Mr. Adam Dalby, to come forward and I'll present it to him. So this is a Texarkana, Arkansas proclamation for July of 2023 for Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of the communities throughout this country, including Texarkana, Arkansas, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Park and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's disease. And whereas Park and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation is a leading provider of healthy meals, nutrition services, and education. And whereas Park and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Park and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, and attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, and whereas our goals in natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Park and Recreation Month, and whereas Texarkana, Arkansas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Alan L. Brown, Mayor of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, recognize the month of July 2023 as Park and Recreation Month. It's signed by myself and our City Clerk, Heather Sawyers. This time I'd like Adam Dalby, our Park and Rec Director, to come forward.
Yes, I'll take a picture.
Adam, congratulations. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move into presentations. We have several service awards. I'm told some are here and some not. I'd like to recognize those that are not present. If you are present, if you'll just raise your hand, we'll recognize you as being present and present you with your certificate. And then our acting city manager, Ms. Henderson, will present our employees, the ones that are here. So not here, Kimberly Stone, District Clerk Probation for 5 years. Kyle Cottle, TAPD, 10 years. Jeremy Hendricks, TAPD for 10 years. Michael Hurst, TWU for 5 years. Amy Usselton for TWU for 5 years. And those were not here, if y'all would give them a round of applause. Is anyone here that I call? Now, present with us to receive, Taronda will present you with your pen and certificate. First note is Adam Dalby, our Park and Recreation Director, 5 years. Mr. John McCoy, 5 years with Park and Rec. You're welcome. Jordan Qualls, Park and Rec, 5 years. Thank you. Mr. Benny Muldrew, Parks, Public Works Department, Streets, 15 years. Corey Atkinson, TWU, 15 years.
He's not here, Mayor.
Not here. Barbara Baker, TWU, 20 years. The whole water department up there. Mr. Lionel Stuckey, TWU, 30 years.
Move over to the microphone.
And last but not least, we're recognizing her for her retirement. This will be her last meeting with us tonight. Miss Mary Beck, Public Works Department Planning, 22 years.
Give a speech.
I think she will later. At this time, we'll move right into our consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of our rescheduled meeting on June 20th. Item number 4 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of chemicals for the water company. What is the desire of the board on the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And the consent agenda is adopted. So moving right along, we'll move into item number 5, which is to adopt a resolution conditionally authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of approximately $22 million of waterworks facility revenue bond. Mr. Gary Smith.
Mayor, members of the board, City Manager Tyranda. This is for the bonds for the projects we listed in the rate study. And we're actually, it's set up where we're going to do a bond each year for 4 years. And with the progress how this went, it's kind of slow getting started. And we have met with the people that did our rate study, and it's actually, we're good to go ahead and do both of them into one bond and go ahead and get the projects going. And it's well below what the rates projected, so we're doing really good. And I have I have the list of projects if y'all want me to go over what we're proposing for this first issuance.
Just fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can get to them. This project, it's 11 projects that we're looking at doing. About $4.5 million of it is for the ready site. We've got people from all over the world looking at this site. We got to get water and sewer out to the site. And then also the sewer plant that serves this site is the North Texarkana wastewater treatment plant. And it's set up right now, it does just under 1 million gallons a day. We're going to double the capacity for that a little, get it to 2 million gallons a day. Because right now, the only excess we have is about 400,000 gallons per day. And so we want to make sure we got plenty of sewer to equip whatever comes in. We got about $500,000 in there for looping dead end mains. We've got a lot of dead end mains in that. It also includes, we got 2-inch water lines at dead end, so we're going to be upping those to 6-inch, looping dead end mains, and adding fire hydrants for fire protection for a lot of these areas that don't have it right now. We're putting in an automatic metering system. We talked about that before. This will help. We're working with a company right now, Johnson Controls. That's who we hired to do our system. They're looking at everything right now. They're testing our water meters. You'll probably see them out and about throughout the area on the Arkansas side and Texas side doing some tests so we can see how accurate our meters are, see what kind of money we're looking at. But we have set aside money on the Arkansas side and Texas side in the bonds to put in this automatic metering system. This will also, it sets up a customer portal so that the customers, they can go in their account, they can go in every day, and they can look and see what water they're using, leak detection. This is a big proponent of, improving our water loss. There's different aspects that come with it depending on what we can afford. And that's right there is about $6 million what we have for the Arkansas side. We've got areas that still don't have sewer. We're looking at extending sewer along the Jefferson corridor north of Interstate. We don't have sewer along that corridor of Jefferson right there. And I know we've had people coming in looking, but sewer wasn't available. We have just under $1 million for identifying the lead and galvanized services. That's an EPA and a state requirement that we're going to have to do. They extended the deadlines. That's why we're able to knock it down a little bit. With the rest of it will have to be in the next budget, next rate study, bonds. But the first year, originally we had to have everything identified physically by October of next year. They now allowed it to be a paper identification. So we're working on that now based on year subdivisions we're putting in, and they backed off their guidelines. They were wanting us to go up to the house and actually dig it up right where it goes in the house, identify it, and they backed off of that. And anything built after 88, we don't have to physically identify. So there's been a lot of savings, so we're hoping that'll cut the money back from a lot less than what we had in the rate study. Then we had a hydraulic analysis done, a master plan back in 2011, and this study also includes some extensions of water main. It's a 12-inch, basically coming along from Boyd Road at 71 and running down 71 till you hit Blackberry Road, and that's to get the pressure and volume increase to the southern part of our system. Sometimes we have issues when we do our chlorine conversion right now, when we start flushing, that we have people with some pressure problems. So this will take care of all that and the quality of water. And also, the last thing is the Nix Creek sewer improvements. The plans are ready. We've got state approval. We're acquiring easements now, and the city's giving us $1.7 million for this first phase. And the estimates have gone up quite a bit since that originally was sitting in. So this has got a little $1.5 million to be able to complete the first phase. And with that said, we have our Cheryl Schluterman with Raymond James. And Jim Fowler, I think most of y'all know, with the Rose Law Firm with us. If y'all have any questions or anything I can answer.
Has anybody got any questions for anyone?
I got one. Did I hear right? You saying you were going to automatic meter reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many currently meter reading you have, and with that imposed, what would they do with the currently people that walking around and doing their job now?
Right now, we have in Arkansas, we have just a little over 12,000 meters that we read in our system. That's the Union, the Manville, and Texarkana, Arkansas area. We have 7 meter readers, 7 meter readers, I believe. But if we go to automatic meter reading system, then we'll either reallocate them to operations where we need additional people people drastically because we don't have enough crews there, but we will not need the 7-meter readers we have right now.
So they will have opportunity to get it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Reason why I was just having a conversation with one the other day when he was reading my meter, so.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to lose their job. This definitely will better. Most cities our size have already gone to this. We're kind of behind, in my opinion, but it'll improve our system drastically, help us with the water loss. It's helped the customers. Like I said, they can go in the portal and they can look up, check it every day if they want to. And see.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the concern of would they be able to have a job?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, my goal would be is reallocate them to the operations department or other places that might need it in the system. Okay.
That's all I want.
Any other discussion or questions?
I do have one question. On the sewer line that's running along 18th Street in front of right there by the stadium,
Yes, sir.
I know we've got to deal with the railroad on that. Have we made any headway with?
Yes, thanks for asking. We did get the railroad permit. We sure did. So like I said, all we're looking now is there's 9 easements. We've got 3 of them. Once we get 80% of them, we'll go and advertise it. But that's all we're in on now is getting the easements. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate any problems. We haven't had any so far. Yeah. The school, the TSD is a big part of the easements, and we've been working with them. They just have to take it to the board, and I don't see that being a problem either.
So is that something that we could start on, within the next 12 months?
Oh, yes, sir. I hope to bid it out before the end of the summer, have it out for bids.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good deal. All right, thank you.
I'm pretty excited on that one. And that'll improve. You'll see the sewer line hanging on the 18th Street Bridge. That'll fix all those issues too.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Any other questions? If not, we'd instruct the city attorney to read the resolution.
A resolution conditionally authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of approximately $22 million of waterworks and sewer facilities revenue bonds and prescribing matters relating thereto. Whereas pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the state of Arkansas, including particularly Amendment 65 of the Public Facilities Boards Act of 1975 as amended, codified as Arkansas Code annotated sections 14-137-101 et sec, the Act and ordinances of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas. The City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board is authorized in furtherance of the public purposes described in the Act to finance various capital improvements of a public nature, including waterworks and sewer facilities through the issuance of its revenue bonds under the Act for such purposes. And whereas the Facilities Board has been requested by the Texarkana Water Utilities to issue approximately $22 million in principal amount of its waterworks and sewer facilities revenue bonds, together with such series designation as may be appropriate at the time of issuance, the bonds. And whereas it has been determined that the proceeds of the bonds will be used to fund additional capital improvements to the city's water and sewer system, which will benefit the city and its residents in furtherance of the public purposes of the Act and the ordinance of the city creating the Facilities Board, and in order to provide funds therefore, the Facilities Board desires to proceed with the issuance of the bonds. Section 1. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas as follows. Section 1, findings. The Board of Directors of the city hereby finds and determines that the issuance of the bonds will benefit the city and its residents in furtherance of the public purposes of the Act and the ordinances of the city creating the Facilities Board. Section 2, conditional authorization of issuance of bonds. Subject to subsequent review of the actual terms and provisions of the bonds and related documents and subsequent approval of the issuance of the bonds by resolution of the Board of Directors of the city pursuant to Section 1 of Ordinance Number K-150 adopted by the city on June 17, 1985, the city hereby authorizes the Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of the bonds in the principal amount of approximately $22 million. Section 3, approval of underwriter. Pursuant to Section 5A of Ordinance Number K-9 adopted by the city on March 5, 1982, the city hereby approves the selection by the Facilities Board of Raymond, James and Associates Incorporated to act as underwriter in connection with the issuance of the bonds, the discount, fees, commissions, and expenses of such underwriter to be paid from the proceeds of the sale of the bonds as costs of issuance. Section 4, approval of bond counsel. Pursuant to Section 5B of Ordinance Number K-9 The city hereby approves the selection by the Facilities Board of Rose Law Firm, a professional association, to act as bond counsel in connection with the issuance of the bonds. The fees and expenses of such counsel to be paid from the proceeds of the sale of the bonds as cost of issuance. Section 5, conflicts. All resolutions and parts of resolutions in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict. Pass and approve this third day of July 2023.
City attorney's read the resolution. What would be the desire of the board?
Motion to adopt.
Second. Let's have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
Yes.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes, and the resolution passes. Jim, thank you all for coming, and have a safe trip home. Moving right along to item number 6, to adopt a resolution amending the Rules of Order and Procedure Manual of the Board of Directors in the City of Texarkana, Arkansas. The floor is open for discussion. Everybody's had a chance to review what was presented in the packets. No discussion?
I got a discussion, but it's on that, but it's on another issue within that, but
I have a few comments to make. I'm not voting for this resolution, and I would like to state some reasons why. One, in my view, the process that we have in place really works. The second thing is our meetings are open to the public, but they're not public meetings. We have the citizens that I can recall since I've been mayor 4.5 years, that citizens bring things to this board through citizens communication time in the manner in which we do now, and those issues get addressed. Some do not get addressed favorably for those citizens, but almost always those citizens have that addressed. Our meetings should be conducted in a professional manner, and they should be timely. We should be respectful of our time as board members, our staff's time, and certainly our citizens' time. Opening up citizens' communication time, in my opinion, will cause a rift almost every week between city staff and citizens, if not board and city staff and citizens. And I think that it's unnecessary. I think that if you talk to all of the staff that work for the city and the department heads, not one department head or staff member would support opening citizen communication time to allow dialogue between board members, the mayor, and citizens. I think if you discuss these changes with the municipal league, as I have done, I think you'll find that, one, they will tell you that the municipal league has cities that have open communication time. I think they will tell you, as a sidebar, they do not condone it. They do not wish that it would happen for several reasons. One, you will get into situations and multiple times where people will not be treated fairly. You could get in discriminatory practices where you allow someone to do something and not the other. We're opening up something to expose the city to liability. And I just don't think that it needs to happen. I think our process is in place, and this is not, again, one statement as this is not a public meeting. These meetings are open to the public, and our public is given an opportunity to respond, and that response is always looked into. I have taken it upon as mayor to always follow up with staff when people bring problems and issues to our city to make sure those people are contacted. I do not have any issues with the presentation side. I feel like that all board members and people that are associated with the city all have an opportunity to make a presentation to the city. I.e., we've had issues with READY, Regional Economic Development Group, not being an entity that can officially have a city. We had one 2 weeks ago when we had a lady with some mitigation issues that wasn't permitted to make a presentation. I have no issues with that. Well, we had issue, we let her do it, but we had issues of her not being approved, and doing that. It wasn't cut and dry that she can make a presentation. I feel like those people should. I feel like we should work on some presentation rules, which means I think that we should go through the agenda process and we shouldn't have 10 or 12 in one night. We should have a time limit on what is appropriate, 15 minutes or 10 minutes. The ordinance, the resolution that's attempting to be passed tonight and could very well pass is very open-ended. It allows for a lot of issues for us as board members, and it will allow for a lot of issues with our staff. And I think that there would be ample time to try to clean that up and allow for that. But I can't support and do not see any need to open up. No entity in Texarkana right now that has boards has open citizens communication time to allow dialogue between citizens and that. There are times when responses are warranted from either the mayor or a council member when issues are brought, meaning that we can address your issue, we will move on because people I do know deserve answers. And I assure you, from my standpoint, when I follow up with staff, those answers are getting done. Those staff is following up. I think if we were to ask our acting city manager now, since she's been acting city manager, she's followed up on things that have come before this board in citizens communication time, she will tell you that they have. So I do not think this is a good thing for the city. It's going to cause riffraff. It's going to cause conflict between citizens and this board, and we need to keep it the way that it is, and we need to work on a procedure to allow for presentations for people that are associated with the city, certainly for board members. In my view right now, you could technically do a presentation during board commentary. We have no rules for board commentary. You could do a presentation during board commentary, nobody could stop you, and it wouldn't be time. I would hope that anybody that would do that would be respectful of everybody's time and not do a 2-hour presentation. But we have some of those procedures in place tonight, and I'm not going to support the resolution in place now. It's very open-ended and will only cause issues for all of us, and I'm not supporting it. Mayor, Director Harris.
Yeah, now, I guess I would come in based on what you said. But at the end of the day, Mayor, I think that it was let stated before, you're the one control the meeting. So if someone get out there and get to saying something that's not really saying or get into something, I think you can tell that person right then, hey, that's basically the end.
Well, why should I have to do that? Because that's going to happen almost every time somebody gets up there.
But that's not really what, from my understanding, what the issue was. The issue was, from my understanding, was that based on sales communication time, that if someone get up here and speak, you can talk to that person and come and feedback back with that person. Just say when that person was coming about the creek, you know, we just sitting up here not saying anything. But I'm not saying that she did not get a response somewhere down the lane. But like I said, at the end of the day, you know, you want to control the meeting and you're not interact with that. But I did see somewhere that, like I said, and I was here when that was put in place, and like I said, I'm going to say the reason why that was put in place, that Ward 3 person before you was up for a re-election, and they didn't want somebody to come getting on his case. And that's the reason when that was put in place, because they didn't, and he still, and it didn't work, because he's not here today. So that's why, from my understanding and from my thinking, that's why that was put in place. And even at one time, they even stopped showing sales of communication when they were showing the board meeting on the thing. And that really kind of made me start bringing my camera up here and recording sales communication and just putting sales communication just on my Facebook page. But I eventually started putting the whole meeting. Right now, this is live meeting. And that because it's the way the board was doing it, and they was kind of suppressing what was going on. To me, what was going on at the board meeting. If you can show the sales communication time, to me, if that wasn't censorship, I don't see what was censorship,
Could I,
you know?
could I make one comment?
Uh-huh.
Because I checked into that several years ago when you started bringing this up during my first term. And the reason that I was given that was, at that time, we were not free on YouTube. We were using KLFI television to do that. And we were utilizing, at some point in time, over an hour to an hour and 15 and 20 minutes, because people, you can't yield your time to somebody else, but the board can vote to extend a time frame for a person that's trying to make an illustration or a point, and that KLFI upped those expenses, upped our price for the television production, because those minutes were increasing by that hour and a half or so that the board was spending in citizen communication time. That's why that's the reason I was given by city staff when that happened. The expense of it is that it got way out of hand, and we were spending an hour and a half during citizen communication time, and they were charging for it. But that's here and there, so.
I don't think that was true, Mayor, because every time you had sometimes people who wasn't even up here speaking during citizen communication time. But I do know when some people came up here but to me, I don't think that was the reason why that was done. Like I stated previously, that was the reason why it was done. But at the end of the day, it's the board meeting. It's not department heads meeting, which get into another issue that, but I just work on one thing at a time on the agenda item, you know. But I just stick to one thing at a time. But this is the board meeting. It's not the department head meeting. I think the board should have the final say so as to how this agenda is ran. And I leave it with that.
Director Roberts.
I know, Director Jewell, if I'm not, when you were, oh goodness,
We started citizen communication
back 20 years ago. During that time, was it?
No, we had no problem.
When did it, I guess, change to where we're at now?
Sometime after I got off the board, some succeeding boards did that. We had no problem. We had some people that the mayor would have to say, your 5 minutes is up, yes. And occasionally, some people would ask for the extension of time. Sometimes that would be granted, sometimes it would not. But just like tonight, we have nobody here to speak. We're here, we're elected to represent the people, not to represent the city staff. So if people don't have the time to sit up here, then they don't need to be here. So citizens' communication time, we sit here muted when a person gets out there and speaks of the problem. We can't, by our rules, engage that person. That's not right. We should be able to talk to that person at that point and try to address to understand their problem. Not really address it at that time, but understand it better, instead of just acting like we don't care. Really what it looks like to me, when you look at the videos, those guys don't care. Yeah. You know, so
And this, I guess-
I'm very much, that's the citizens' communication time.
That's right.
Like I say, I started that back in the 90s. and I'm
First of all,
very much.
the one comment I would make is everybody understands the rules when they approach the board meeting, and those have been going on for quite some time. And those people understand that our response is not to respond. And then the second thing is that they do get responded to. So it's that process. And there are several other ways to even do that. The school board requires you to submit your staying in advance.
I don't disagree. I don't think most.
And there were several unprofessional, chaotic meetings back in the day when we had open citizen communication time. And all the mayor became was a judge between trying to decide who needs to speak and who not speak. And that's not carrying on the professionalism and the business of the citizens.
Well, democracy is not always professional.
It will happen.
Yes.
We open up citizens communication time, it is going to happen. And you're going to have 100 people talk about public works, and you're going to throw your public works director on the bus. I mean, that's basically what it has the potential to do.
But they can do that now, regardless
They
of whether
can't
we
do it in
respond.
public. They can't do it in public. You can't allow it
We're
in
not
here.
changing them being able to attack a staff member.
You're
All
giving
we're
them-
doing is changing it where we can respond. And you
But
say,
half the time,
I'm sorry.
But half the time you can't respond. You don't know
I
what
would
the
like to
answer is.
respond if you'd let me, because I'll listen to your 10 minutes.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that you say most people can come up here and they understand the rules. I disagree. Most people come up here and they present something to the board and they're looking for a response, not looking for a confrontation. They're just looking for somebody to say, hey, you're in my ward, I'll get with you after the meeting, I'll take care of this, we will address it. At least we can give them a response instead of sitting here like a knot on the log. And if you notice how most people are confused when they get through talking because they're expecting somebody to respond to them.
Exactly.
And so you're going to whether you have that in place or not, you're still going to have people that are going to come in and try to attack staff, and we don't allow that. We don't allow people to call people directly by staff. We can operate an orderly meeting, and we should be able to interact with the citizens. And that's, I don't understand.
Any other comments? If not, I'd have instruct the city attorney to read the resolution.
Whereas to ensure effective communication and discussion during meetings of the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, it is necessary to amend the existing Rules of Order and Procedure Manual. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the Rules of Order and Procedure Manual for the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas is amended as follows, and the clerk is directed to include these amendments in and republish the rules in an updated and amended form. Number 1, Rules of Order and Procedure Manual. Citizen participation, citizen communication time is deleted in its entirety, and the following is substituted for the same. The Board of Directors allows a time on the agenda for citizens, organizations, or community groups to address or make presentations to the board. Except for presentations by a member of the Board of Directors, city staff, or city-appointed boards or commissions that may be placed elsewhere on the agenda, all comments by citizens or presentations by organizations or community groups concerning matters that are not otherwise being considered by the Board of Directors as an action item should be made during this period of the agenda. The mayor chairs the meeting and will recognize members of the audience who wish to be heard. Citizens, organizations, or community groups recognized by the mayor are requested to approach the lectern, provide their name and address for the record, and make their comment or presentation. Each citizen comment, or in the case of a presentation by an organization or community group, each presentation shall be limited to 5 minutes. Provided, however, a speaker's time may be extended upon proper motion to suspend the rules and extend the speaker's time for a specified period of time. Speakers or presentations may not yield time to one another. Action by the board is limited to those matters properly placed on the agenda or otherwise approved by the board for consideration at a meeting in accordance with these rules. The City of Texarkana, Arkansas Code of Ordinances and applicable law. Passed and approved this 3rd day of July 2023.
City attorney's read the resolution. What would be the desire of the board?
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Hello.
I'm so sorry, but before the board moves forward with this agenda item, I just ask that one thing really be considered, and that's the involvement of staff in citizens communication. Like Director Hart said, we cannot stop anyone from attacking staff, but I ask that we do not put staff on the spotlight during citizen communication and involve them with that. If you notice, whenever a citizen has an issue, no matter the department that is in, especially if it's in Public Works, our police department, you will see them oftentimes go over to that citizen after they come from the podium to make sure they have all their proper contact information so that they can follow up with them. That is a major concern of mine, is that we don't bring them up. That way they have time to properly follow through with it, get all the adequate information compared to giving answers directly on the spot to a situation. That is very important, and it's very important to our department heads as well. It puts them in a position to where anytime they give an answer to any question, they're knowledgeable on what's going on, and they've had the time to properly vet that issue.
I would say, Tyronda, thank you for your input, and I agree that no staff should be called out by name. We don't allow that now, right? But I do believe that an acceptable answer is that I need to have more time to research this, and I will get back with you. I don't think that every citizen that comes up here is expecting a resolution of whatever the issue is that the citizen has brought forward.
Yes, sir.
And so, like for me, if somebody came up in my ward, I would say, I understand what the issue is. I will get with you after the meeting. We can discuss this. I'll research it. I'll get with Public Works. I'll get with the water utilities, but at least giving them the common courtesy of us responding and letting them know that we have actually heard them. Because right now, all we do is we just sit here and they say something, we go, and it looks like we don't even care. I've got so many phone calls of people saying, why do you guys not respond? And I said, well, we can't.
Well, I just want to make sure our department heads are taken care of.
Yes,
If there's anything,
I'll
I'll be sure to follow up with them as well. So if y'all can, if there does require a response at that moment, if y'all will direct those toward me, I'll make sure that I give them the adequate information to let them know that we'll go through the proper channels to get them the answer that they need to their question.
Absolutely.
Or try our best to resolve those issues.
So Director Harris has moved for adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
Yes.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
No. Moving right along to item number 7, to adopt an ordinance authorizing the acting city manager to enter into agreement for the purchase of 37 WatchGuard body cameras and related software, hardware, licenses, and warranty. Chief Cranton.
Good evening. We had the opportunity through a grant to fund additional purchase of body cams. As it is now, we don't have enough for all of our officers to have body cameras. They have to turn them in and let them charge before they can put another one on for a shift that's oncoming. That's a recipe for disaster in the end. The batteries wear out. They don't always, their technology, some of them are going to fail. This affords us, basically through grant funding, the ability to have enough body cameras for all officers to be issued a body camera and be responsible for maintaining that body camera and basically making sure that we have enough for everybody to have one. It's grant funded. There was about $14,000 in excess of what we had grant funding for, and Motorola actually credited us that. So that's where we are right now.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief Cram, Director Harris?
Oh, wait, go ahead.
How many functional units do you have now?
I don't have the number of how many we have now. I know that when we don't have enough for everybody throughout the course of a day to have one. And that's just for one day, much less 2 days. It's expensive to maintain. And so with this grant, it gives us an opportunity to just better equip ourselves because technology fails. These things break, these things go out. And as it is, we're running thin.
With the 37 units, is that enough for every officer to have a new one?
It's not all new ones, no, but it's enough for everybody in patrol who's out answering calls to make sure they all have one available to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need 37 versus phasing in like 10 or 15 or something like that? Is the
37 is how many we can afford in the grant, and it's not enough for every officer to be issued a body camera, but it's enough for us to have everybody who is in patrol answering calls and dealing with the public to have a body camera.
I would say, Chief, as we go through the budget process, we need to make sure that we account for that, right? Because I know the officers really need that to protect themselves because of the situations that we're in nowadays.
Body cameras are great for the officers.
Yep.
They protect the officers,
Protects the officers.
from a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
In fact, the officers don't like working without a body camera.
So again, if we don't address all of this with this grant, please address it during the budget process. And
Absolutely.
let us help you do that, right?
Thank you.
How many officers work on a shift on the average day or whatever that require a body cam?
When we're not 20 people short like we are right now,
Yeah.
we try to have an officer in every beat, plus we try to have at least 2 sergeants on. We don't have the bodies to have that right now, so we would like to have between 10 and 12 people on the street at any given time. We're running about half that.
So 10 or 12?
If
On-
in a
on the
perfect
street.
world, yes,
And the 2 sergeants?
yes.
So that's 17, right?
That's 7 at any given time, if that's all you have. But then you also have, we have narcotics officers that serve warrants. We have our housing officers who work special operations. We have any number of different considerations other than just patrol.
So during a day, 20 units, 25 units? What's
I wish.
No?
No, not all the
Take more
time.
than that? I
I'm
mean,
sorry?
you're going to have more than 20 bodies servicing Texarkana that need a body cam.
We will have come tomorrow night, absolutely. But not on a normal patrol day.
But the units that you're upgrading, you're actually going to have them. You're going to keep those, right?
The ones that we already have will have an end of life coming before too terribly long. So some of these will end up replacing those in the years to come, yes.
Plus, and the point you made was that some of those have to be recharged, so that if you kind of doubled up a little bit, that covers you from the officer being able to use it for the next shift, correct?
They not only have to be recharged, you have to dock them so that they download the day's videos. So there's a process. Every time somebody takes one off, it can't just go to another officer. It's got to download all of the video into the system, and it's got to recharge.
Any other questions?
So I just want to say, with the grant funding and with the credit that we've got from Motorola, they're all paid for.
Yes,
This isn't costing us any additional money.
it is not.
Director Harris?
Oh, okay, I was gonna ask, is there a reason why we choosing this one versus the LX, it's ALOX, I think.
Axon, is that what you're thinking of?
Is there a
We are-
reason why we choose Motorola versus this? Basically, there's only 2 body cams out there from my.
But we already use the Motorola system. To completely scrap it and buy everything new would cost a lot of money.
Oh, okay, so that's the reason.
And the bad thing about these, Director Harris, with any kind of technology like this, whether it be Motorola or anybody else, they build in end of life. So it's hard to transition from one system to another system entirely, because you have to go in and pay for the whole new system at once, or you've got to run 2 systems, which is really expensive.
Okay. And my other question is, well, do this one automatically start recording at least 1 or 2, at least 15 seconds before you hit the recording button?
I'll give you, for instance, the officer that we had involved in an accident last week where someone blew a stop sign and T-boned her. We were able to go back and start that one 30 seconds before the crash to replay the entirety of it, yes.
Okay. And the reason why I was anxious, I know a whole lot about body cam. I just was I was in DC, and I met people that does the other one, and they was asking me about what system we have here, but I told them they probably need to contact somebody here in the police force and give you better than me trying to. But they demonstrated
The Axon system.
Yeah, they demonstrated.
Yeah, those are the 2 big players in body cameras.
So,
But the Motorola system is also going to work in conjunction with all the Motorola software that we have for dispatch, et cetera, and records keeping that we're going to. Those kind of work together. So it makes better sense for us to stick with those while they're all working together, as long as it serves our purpose.
And what kind of policy we have with body cam? Do the police force have a policy with body cam?
Body cameras and in-car cameras, yes. We record, by policy, we record every interaction with the public.
Is in the office, could they turn their body camera off?
They can.
Okay.
Absolutely, you can. But it's recorded that you turned it off.
It's what?
It shows that you turned it off.
Oh, okay.
There's a digital recording of all those activities when you download the camera.
Oh, okay.
And he should have.
And yes, we take that very seriously, because it's there for the protection of the citizens and the officers. And when you turn that off, there are certain allowances to turn a body camera off or an in-car camera off. If you're questioning someone about a suspect and that person doesn't want to be identified, you don't want them on camera. There are certain allowances, but they're very limited. We like to keep most everything we do on camera.
No, I wasn't saying it in the sense that I want the officer to turn them off. I was saying it in the sense that it is something that keep our officer from turning them off. If he gives him.
They have the ability to turn it off for those reasons that I just stated.
Okay.
But typically, you have to have a very valid reason to disengage your video system.
Okay.
And we review those monthly.
How long does it keep it? That's my other question. If you, the body cam video today, how long do the system we have in place, they be?
I believe it's 30 days unless we flag it. If we flag it to go with a case or download it to go with a case, then it's extended. Or if we get a complaint on something.
Is this the system Texas has?
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
But I'm assuming, Chief, that you have policies and procedures in place of why or what's acceptable to turn them off.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make it, typically the board, as we're adopting ordinances, we're making a motion to suspend the rules to read the ordinance in its abbreviated form. This is, and then suspend the rules, go to second reading. I would request the board to start separating those motions instead of combining them into one, because most of the time I'm going to be objecting to going to a second reading. So when I object, it's going to automatically require that the ordinance be read in its long version because of our rules of order, when it's all wrapped up into one resolution. So keep that in mind when the directors are making a resolution as we go to the second reading.
So are you asking that we spread this out over 3 meetings before we have a motion to adopt?
Just that the resolution, so that we don't get caught up in having to read it long time.
Well, the resolutions are read in their entirety.
This is an ordinance.
We're talking about
so
ordinance.
I'm sorry.
The ordinance itself is read in abbreviated form on its first reading in the same motion.
Yeah.
So you would just object to having it read on its second reading in abbreviated form, if you didn't want to have it read that night, its second time.
Yeah, but the resolution.
But objecting
is done is wrapped up into, there's 2 resolutions into one, two motions into one, really.
But you're just one vote.
Yeah, but
You're
that's all
just
it
one
takes
vote.
to require, it only takes one vote to require a full reading of the ordinance. You can't read it in abbreviated form, with
Yes, sir.
my one objection.
I understand.
I understand what he's saying. He's saying that he wants to reread it in abbreviated form in one resolution, then suspend the rule.
The way we did it before, you made a motion to suspend the rules, then you come back and further suspend the rules to read it in its abbreviated form.
So at this time, we would entertain a motion to have it read in abbreviated form.
Motion.
Second.
So a motion is second to have the ordinance read in its abbreviated form. Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
Yes.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. At this time, we would entertain a motion to have the ordinance read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Or a motion to have it read in its first reading. It's already been passed to read and abbreviated.
That was.
So since the motion is to have it read its first time.
I'll make that motion.
What?
Second.
So we have a motion and second to have it read its first time. Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
No.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. So you don't want to have it read on its first reading?
Yes. I guess I confused it. But actually, my deal was not going to come.
You want to object to it being read 3 times in one night?
I was going to object going to the second reading. The first reading was fine.
Well, you need to change your vote to yes, because we're reading right now on the first reading.
First reading.
Right.
This is the first reading. You want it read one time tonight, so you need to vote
But
yes.
it can be read without my vote.
Yeah, he voted no.
Yes.
But we majority rules, so read the ordinance in its first reading in abbreviated form.
An ordinance waiving competitive bidding, authorizing the acting city manager to enter into an agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated for the purchase of 37 WatchGuard body cameras for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
So ordinance has been read on its first reading. I would entertain a motion to have it read in its abbreviated form.
I'll make a motion for it to be read in its abbreviated form.
I need
I
a-
would second that.
Okay, so call the roll, please.
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
Well, no.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. I would entertain a motion to have the ordinance read on its second reading.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to have it read on its second reading. Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Hollibush?
Yes.
Director Jewell?
No.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
So now I would read,
Abbreviated form in its second reading.
okay,
Yeah. No, we hadn't read it the second time yet.
right.
This will be your second reading in abbreviated form.
An ordinance waiving competitive bidding, authorizing the acting city manager to enter into an agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated for the purchase of 37 WatchGuard body cameras for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
So, what is the ordinance number? I'm missing it.
Do what?
What is the ordinance number? K what? I'll just try to clarify things. So right now, we're at a motion to have ordinance K whatever read in abbreviated form.
Oh,
Number
we
6.
don't have a number. Well, it will be 21-2023.
All right, I need a motion to have it read in its abbreviated form.
Motion. Second.
So I have a motion and a second to have it read in its abbreviated form. Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Hollibush?
Yes.
Director Jewell?
Yes.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. We'd entertain a motion to have the ordinance read on its third reading.
Third reading, abbreviated form.
No, just third reading. So we have a motion to have it read a
Second.
third time. Have a second. Could you call the roll, please?
Assistant Mayor Roberts?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Hollibush?
Yes.
Director Jewell?
No.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
An ordinance waiving competitive bidding, authorizing the acting city manager to enter into an agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated for the purchase of 37 WatchGuard body cameras for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its third reading. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt. Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this particular ordinance?
How many times do we vote on this so far?
Hearing and seeing none, could you call the roll, please? Could you call the roll, please?
Assistant Mayor Roberts?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Hollibush?
Yes.
Director Jewell?
Yes.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. And the ordinance passes. The police department's asking for emergency clause. What would be the desire of the board?
Motion to attach.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to attach the emergency clause. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Assistant Mayor Roberts?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Hollibush?
Yes.
Director Jewell?
Yes.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, and the ordinance passes, emergency clause is attached. Moving right along to item number 8, which is to adopt an ordinance to rezone a parcel of land located on the northeast corner of Grand Avenue and 37th Street from R3 low-density residential to R4 medium-density residential. Ms. Beck.
Good evening. Again, the property that we're looking at this evening is located 37th and Grand. The structure that's shown on the map has been demolished. So this property is currently zoned R3. You can see the area around it is mainly R3. There's a R4 diagonal from this property, and the request is to zone this to R4. The difference in the low density and the medium density is that you can have more structures on a property. They can be a smaller property. The frontage is a little bit different. And the property owner wants to build 3 adjoined townhouses at this location. And in order to do that, the zoning is required is R4. It's adequately served by water and sewer. You can see the fire hydrants are within the required distance, about 200 feet from the property, the closest one is. There wasn't any objections to this application at the Planning Commission, or we didn't receive any comments before, after we sent out letters to exactly 27 property owners, because it's a 300-foot notification area and it's a fairly dense population there. So if it's the wish of the board to approve this, then the property owner will develop it, as he has developed some other properties in the city of duplexes and single-family houses for rental. I'd be glad to answer any questions. The property owner was not able to be here this evening.
No objection, and the planning committee voted unanimously to rezone.
Yes, sir. They voted there was no objections, and they were in full support of it. They're glad to see development. They did have, they had questions about the style of the housing. They really didn't want to see the one-story kind of duplexes, but the townhouses are something that seems to be more acceptable, and that's something that people are really looking to build, because they fill up really quick. They're attractive.
Did the developer give you any kind of time frame? That's when
He wants he asked for an emergency clause so that he could start building as soon as possible while the weather's good.
Any other questions? Assuming we want to do this one the same way since it's an ordinance?
No, go ahead, the regular way.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to have the ordinance read on its first reading.
Second.
So have a motion and a second.
Is that abbreviated form?
Is that abbreviated form? Is it, or is it not?
In abbreviated form.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read in its abbreviated form on its first reading. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Hollibish,
Yes.
Director Jewell,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K-286 as amended for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire to have it read on its second?
Second reading, abbreviated form.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to have it read in its abbreviated form on its second reading. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Hollibish,
Yes.
Director Jewell,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K-286 as amended for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire to have it read on its third and final reading?
Third and final reading, abbreviated form.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to have it read on its third and final reading in abbreviated form. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Hollibish,
Yes.
Director Jewell,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K-286 as amended for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt this particular ordinance, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against? Hearing and seeing none, could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Hollibish,
Yes.
Director Jewell,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. No, ordinance is adopted. The property owner has requested an emergency clause. What would be the desire of the board?
Motion to attach.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to attach the emergency clause. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Hollibish,
Yes.
Director Jewell,
Yes.
Director Hart,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Emergency clause is attached. Moving on to our last item tonight on the agenda, item number 9 is to adopt an ordinance to approve the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Comprehensive Plan. Ms. Beck.
Well, we've been working on this comprehensive plan for a while now. Starting in October 2021, we reached out looking for a consultant. The city manager at that time, Jay Ellington, was eager to bring us up to speed and get us in compliance with state requirements of having a comprehensive plan. And Garver was selected as our consulting firm. We started having meetings in 2022. The big visioning meeting was in April. And we started, also had a Zoom meeting in August of that year. In November, we had another meeting. And then going into this year, we kind of had finished up with the major components of the timeline. And Julie will go over all this. I just want to do just a quick summary. Just recalling that the second Tuesday of May of this year, we invited all the board members and the Planning Commission for a review of the consolidated plan. And before printing or publishing it, getting down to those last components and making sure that everybody was on board. And then we had the Planning Commission meeting June 13th last month by Zoom to finalize, hopefully, everything that had been developed. And that development included a lot of maps, surveys, public input, and generally pulling together the types of things that normally we would have had something to start from, maybe 8-10 years old instead of 34 years old. So anyway, Juliet is here. You've all got a printed copy, a limited number of copies, of course, because it hasn't been formally adopted. But she's here to do a presentation, since this is actually a city presentation. I don't think it falls under the regular rules of the other presentations, but Juliet?
So I just have just a couple of questions, just for me personally, because one, I haven't had an opportunity to look at this like it really needs to be looked at. I got it Thursday night. I did not understand until really later today that this was going to be voted on, and this is going to be the comprehensive plan. If we vote this in tonight, that's good till 2045. So I didn't understand that. I read several things in there where we were looking at the draft consolidation copy. I didn't know until today that the Planning Commission had voted and supported that. I know that we've had all these meetings, and I had a couple of questions about, has the committee that Jay appointed, we had all these citizens involved in this, have they seen this plan in its final? Have they approved of it? Did we give them, any thanks for their service and let them know? I mean, to me, this would be more appropriate in a workshop type of setting to review this thing, to support, so that we all know as board members what we're voting on and what we're doing. And they may have had an opportunity, they understand it because it has a lot to do with planning and zoning, but for me personally, I don't know what all's in here yet. I don't know what the final plan was. So to ask me to vote on that tonight to be published up to 2045, I can't do it.
I agree.
So
I agree, Mayor.
I'm just thinking through the process, Julie. I know y'all have done a lot of work on it, but this is something that feels like that we're rushing into, and I'd like an opportunity to review it and understand it. But I also think that we owe those citizens that were on this committee a chance to look at the final product, understand the plan, and I wouldn't do anything that Boots Parments wouldn't approve, because I know Boots spends a lot of time in this and he understands what's going on. But I didn't even know till this afternoon that they'd already approved it. So
yeah, and that's fine. I mean, obviously, whatever you're comfortable with is completely fine. I do want to just say it should be re-reviewed before 2040 or 2045. Sure. Just so you know, a common practice is to look at them every 5 to 10 years. And so I just don't want you to think that if you vote for something tonight or next month even, or whatever, that it's going to be in effect for 20 years. It's a 20-year planning horizon. So that's what you're trying to look at. But of course, the world changes very quickly, as we all know, especially, the last few years. And so I think it is good practice and policy to take a look at it and see what amendments you may want to make, every 5 to 10 years. And honestly, I would say, that's a policy, but you can make changes to it any time, by ordinance, so.
With this open for Director Harris.
I agree with you too, Mayor, but I'm just looking at one thing, page 23. We already changed the way the wards are.
Yeah.
We still got we just changed the ward maps.
On page 23?
Page 23.
Oh, yeah.
So I noticed that. Then my other question I would ask is, College Hill District on page 28.
Yes, sir.
I noticed, I'm assuming over there by Robert Street, that map there, I'm guess that's the old Hobo Jungle is not in there, but back on the top north right side, I'm assuming that land is curved up like a hill. I'm assuming that would be the railroad track. But
yes, sir.
Houses over in that area. Why did you stop that area there for including in College Hill? Why didn't you just use if you started on one end, why didn't you just use the railroad track for all the districts? Because if you look at on page 31, you basically did use the railroad track. But on page 28, where it said Dudley Avenue on the left-hand corner, I noticed that you didn't use the railroad track, and it stopped there. But that area there is not included in Ozane, England area. It's just a blank area. Why is that?
Well,
understand what I'm saying?
I think I do.
If you look at page 28, where it said Dudley Street,
yes,
that area there is not included. From what I can understand, if you look at page 31 for Ozane, England, Iron Mountain neighborhood section, that area there is not included in no area. Why don't you just go up to the railroad track and include all that in College Hill District?
Well, we certainly could. I'm trying to remember exactly when we talked through that. I was thinking there's some institutional uses, I believe, on that side of the street.
Let me make a comment. I know that you have the nursing home there,
yes,
but the nursing home, I don't think is covered all that, and that was old Cotton Valley Hospital there. Some of that could be wooded area. I'm aware of that. So.
On page 31, what that is those are districts that are their recommendations for individual studies. So that's a particular area that there's a lot of floodplain issues, and also the downtown area, where those areas would benefit from individual specialized plans. So they're not comparable really to what is being addressed on 28. It's an entirely different focus for that.
I got it.
So that's not considered part of a housing neighborhood for having a housing issue there?
Well, that's floodplain. So there's a lot.
Okay, that's floodplain.
Yeah, it's not to say that there's not housing, priorities that may need to be looked at there. It was just kind of looking at a different set of factors that was very specific to that area.
Oh, okay. But I still agree with the mayor on this.
I do as well. I think
So I think the general consensus is workshop and have some time to review this.
I didn't know you were coming today, and I know you drove all the way down here thinking we were going to approve this comprehensive plan tonight, but I didn't know what all the plans were, and I take responsibility for that because I didn't study it. But I think that we ought to table it, would be my recommendation, and that we schedule some type of workshop that we can get, at least invite the committee that helped work on this, that we got information from, and the board. The Planning Commission, in my opinion, is done with it. They've already approved it, so it's up to us now to accept their recommendation and approve it like we would any ordinance, any rezoning like we did just previously. So that'd be my suggestion, would be to just table it and figure out a date that we can have a workshop and go back through this and maybe fix these things, that one thing with our ward maps and stuff has got to be fixed already, so.
Well, okay. Yeah, I guess since I'm here, would you like for me to do a short presentation so that you could ask me any questions that you might have, or?
That's acceptable to me, it's up to the board. You hadn't had a chance to look at it?
I haven't had a chance to look at it to ask you questions.
I would say, well, I hate to say no,
Well,
but
would
that
it-
would be mine, would be, you always hear from.
Would it be helpful if
Could you do a presentation?
it might be helpful, I could just provide a little bit of context, so when you do read it, it might make it
Sure.
a little easier. I won't take up much of your time.
Sure, go
I just
right
hate to not have the chance to kind of talk through it real quickly.
I would like to ask, can she do a presentation based on our rules?
They've already voted in, they're changed, so.
That don't take effect until,
Till I sign that thing, it's over there on that desk, so I could sign it.
that doesn't take effect to 30 days.
I think that's
I'm
just-
asking, I'm asking for a point of order. Can she do a presentation based on the way the thing is done?
She can.
We haven't voted to
Yeah,
table this yet, so I would say that
She
she's.
can do a presentation on it.
I'm saying, can
Right,
she do,
yes. I believe she can.
why is that? Is she not an employee?
City staff.
I know city staff
Right, and the same thing that happened before.
well, I didn't ask for no point of order before.
Okay.
This is something that the city contracted to have done.
Ma'am, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting to our bylaws that we have, that an employee, only an employee can do a presentation. And that's the point I'm trying to make. And the point I'm trying to ask for a point of order, can she do a presentation since she is not a employee of the city? She's not a department head. She's not an employee. I know what, and so that's why I've asked for a point of order with the mayor, and I guess the city attorney. Could she do a presentation? I ain't trying to be harsh, but
Well, the problem is,
She's able
we
to
have
do it.
accepted those in the past. We did it the last board meeting because it was brought to our attention by the fire chief. This is part of the planning department. I have no issues with her doing a presentation while she's here, but the technical part of it is she's not allowed to do a presentation.
But is she allowed because this is part of an action item?
Yeah.
And because she's doing this presentation,
We are voting on it.
right?
And it does require a vote by the board. And
Right.
it does state in there that there is a technicality, if it does require a vote for the board, a presentation can be had. And it doesn't say who can do it.
But if we vote to table it, at that point, there's no reason for a presentation because at that point it's tabled.
Then the floor is open for a motion to table.
I move that we table it.
I second.
So I have a motion and a second to tables. Any other discussion?
Can I, one
Yes.
thing, if not a presentation, can she give us stuff to maybe look for? I mean, stuff that might be of interest to us?
Before we table it, why don't we let the lady give us a short?
We have a motion and a second on the floor to table. I would say Director Roberts, you could get with her at the meeting, would probably be the best mechanism to handle it. So I have a motion and a second on the floor to table. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
No.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Hollibush,
No.
Director Jewell,
No.
Director Hart,
No.
Mayor Brown.
No.
The floor is yours.
So that means we gonna vote on it then too.
We're not going to vote on that. We're not
Well,
voting
yes,
on the
voted
planning.
not to.
We're allowing her to give us the directions in which to study the comprehensive plan, the way I look at it.
So what was the vote a few minutes ago for? I thought it was to table.
The vote was to table it, but we haven't tabled it yet. So we're allowing her to give a presentation, not a presentation, but brief remarks about what you need to look for in studying this thing. Then we'll have to have another vote to table it. I'm not voting on it tonight.
Well, how can you have two votes in the same night on one, not then turn around again, then table it? I don't see how that's gonna work.
We don't necessarily have to have a vote to table it. We can have a vote to pass it and reject it.
I'm just saying, how would that work, Mr. Parliamentarian?
The vote to table it died or didn't pass.
That's right.
And so it's still open.
That's right.
And so the mayor directs what happens next. And if
So
somebody
with it being an action item, when she finishes, we can go back and do whatever we
Correct.
can vote for it, table it, do whatever we want.
after that information, someone can vote to table it again. Y'all can
But I
vote up
think
or
you
down.
can, if I'm getting the thing on Robert Rules of Order, I didn't know you can reconsider something in the same board meeting unless you get new evidence. I could be wrong on that, but
This would be our opportunity to get new evidence.
but I don't think you can do what you're doing. I think either you table it or you don't table it. But
What is the board, what is the consensus of the board?
Well, we did table it.
I'd like
say
to
that.
do
you already voted now.
Yeah, we didn't table it.
Julie, go right ahead.
Okay, I'll be brief. How's that? Okay, so you do have this document, and I know that y'all received a link to the digital documents as well. I will say that we made a conscious decision to make this document, the final document, be something that we felt like would be great to be able to give out to the public, and kind of a palatable version. There are multiple appendices that you probably see that have a lot of technical information in them, that would have made this like a 100-page document, which is not easy for people to digest. So we did make it very graphically oriented because we want you to be able to communicate your vision to the people as well. And so if you're looking for technical information, please don't hesitate to look at the appendices. So just to kind of go through what we have, if you remember, we did do quite a bit of public input and learned what people valued about Texarkana and what they wanted to see in the future. I always tell people that a plan is, it's usually not a revolution. What you're trying to do is identify the things in your community that work well, that people love about your community, and that you want to build on in the future. You also want to identify things that may be challenges and opportunities that you also want to work on. So I think that's a good lens to look at this through, and as you read it over the next several weeks or whenever we talk again. Also, as we talked, you're trying to look approximately 20 years in the future. Nobody has, the crystal ball, so we just do the best that we can. Again, this is a living document. Even when you do decide to adopt it, you as the board directors can make changes to it at any time, just like any other document that we have. We did get feedback from people very interested in infill development, housing revitalization, quality jobs, retail and commercial options. And so these are things that we looked at, after we get that feedback and talked with multiple people and stakeholders. These are the things that we looked at as we wrote the plan. So you have a vision and goals. There's a short history section, and you'll see some other local plans and reports in here. When you get to the vision and goals, which start on page 24 and 25. So we have a vision statement for the city, and then vision and goal areas. So we want to create enduring neighborhoods and places within your city and focus on quality of life and image and infrastructure and fiscal health. I know that you don't want me to kind of go into a lot of detail, but again, I'm just trying to set up the framework for you to understand kind of how we are looking at this plan. We looked at a lot of existing conditions, population density, right, where people live in the city now, and what that means to your city as far as just kind of where your citizens are congregated, and from fiscal and utility planning in the future. You have your existing land uses, so that is what's on the ground today. It's different than a zoning map, because zoning maps don't always reflect what's actually there, but this is just kind of gives you an idea of the uses that you have in your city, existing street classification, and we looked at residential permits to see where you're getting growth and reinvestment currently in your city. And then you have your water and sewer map as well. So we did have a few focus areas. We looked at areas that, and I'll just say these boundaries are not hard and fast. This is looking at things from a larger standpoint, and I understand your comments, Director Harris. But we're just looking at areas that, from talking with city staff and looking at things on the ground, we understand that there could be opportunity for infill in those areas. The city has a lot of synergy, I think, from the actions and investments that you've taken as a board, and to look at blighted structures that you have in your city and work toward resolving some of that. And so we looked at these areas for infill. Again, this is, if you read through this, you'll see that we're looking at, things that we can do to encourage infill. So basically removing any barriers that may be there for people to develop and redevelop those lots. We looked at, specific areas where there have been structures demolished. Housing is big everywhere in the U.S. right now. There's a lot of housing demand. And, looking at the number of lots that you have, even within like a 2-block radius, where people could be looking at infill, and you can provide housing that you don't have to build new water lines or streets to get to, but existing lots in your city. As Mary said, we also have a couple neighborhood focus areas. These are areas where the downtown and the Ozan Ingram Iron Mountain neighborhood area. These are areas that we looked at, and we feel like there's real potential to do things there, but they really need further study because of very specific challenges and opportunities that they provide. And so you'll read a little bit about that in those focus areas. And again, I will say, for those, what we wanted to look at was just pointing out really small ways that you can even get started, even if you don't do a whole plan or something for these individual neighborhoods or for the downtown, that there are very detailed pieces that you could look at that could be very little or no cost. You probably even do them with staff that you have to look at parking opportunities and things downtown that could really help encourage more development. And I think those things are really powerful for a city. We have the future land use plan overall and all the categories that go along with it. Again, you'll see snapshots of detailed parts of town kind of explaining things. Again, these are not, huge departures, but they're a way to really define the districts that you already have, right? The areas that feel different within your city that people care about and have a lot of value to them, and try to make sure that through that future land use map that you would consider as you see zoning changes come up like you saw tonight. You want to make sure that that's aligned, and so you're protecting, again, what people value in your city. On the master street plan, this shows areas where, as the city, if the city continues to develop out into kind of the more rural areas, that it would make a lot of sense to plan for a street grid. This is not something that the city would go out and build, right? This would be something that would come online, and you would consider as developers bring in new plats for subdivisions and things, and this is just to protect the integrity of your street network. And generally, a lot of these, these are minor collector type streets and things that these are things that would probably be built with the development, and usually part of that cost would come with the development themselves. There's the way you look at that, a legal way, but you look at their proportionate impact on your system, and they may need to help build that out. But it is smart to plan for the future so that you don't have a lot of traffic just being funneled into small, into one access point and cause congestion problems for your future network. The active transportation plan, this is for trails and bikeways through the city. This was something we got a lot of feedback. People love the Nix Creek Trail, that the city's invested in, and they're excited to see more in future phases and more access to trails. And so we looked at some critical kind of focused areas for that. I think crossing East Broad is a barrier now, but we looked at again, several different options that could work for that to help you kind of think about that in the future as you're applying for grants and things. And so that's reflected on there. And then we also looked at just some different areas that would be connected if you did continue to build out some trails, and even roughly the amount of citizens that you could add that could have access to that existing trail network. So 2,600 people just looking in this one part of the city. So then we have an implementation plan. So plan is only as good as, how much you can do with it, right? You don't need anything else to sit on a shelf. And so just going through, again, a couple ideas for how you can make the most of this, right? Just smaller code amendments, considering, potential future plans, or even just some detailed exploration into some of these neighborhoods, downtown, Ozan, Ingram, and even just small policy changes, I think, can make a big difference. Public Works talked about developing an actual CIP plan so that you would have that to look at. Budgeting, I know, is always a challenge. You have a lot of competing interests, and a way to develop consensus among the board for that. And then active transportation, again, ways to prioritize that. I know that y'all have recently hired a grants person, and I think that's fantastic. To me, that's huge, for a city when you get to that step, because then you're able to really look for ways, to make these things happen. So our idea was to give you as many ideas as we could to help move you forward in that way. And that's all I got.
Julie, one thing that come to my mind is with everything that we approved tonight with the bond issue of the water company, and we're expanding that sewer already, would there be somewhere, since you've got to evidently make a few changes in there already, we could do some footnotes to what we already have taken care of?
Sure, yeah.
So you're going to have that new sewer line built. We've got sewer expanding out into property that hadn't had it before, and to me,
Yes,
that's
sir.
positive. That's what people want, so.
Yeah, I think some of it we kind of reflected in the land use planning, because we thought that it was probably headed that way, but I have Mr. Smith's card in my pocket, and I'll touch base with him to make sure we understand exactly what areas that will touch, so we can at least make a note to that.
Mary's not going to be here, but once we approve this, is this something that could be put like on the city website? So
Yes, we have all the information ready. I mean, everything's ready to hand over. We have all the digital mapping files. That's what Gary was interested in getting as well, so then TWU would be able to publish any of that as well. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Julie?
We appreciate your time.
thank you.
Thank y'all.
Have a safe trip home.
All right, happy 4th.
So now, I guess technically, we would have to reconsider item number 9, since after we have that information, we have a motion that failed to table. What would be the desire of the board after hearing the information?
Motion to table.
I second that.
So I have a motion and a second to table. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Present.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
Yes.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes, the ordinance is tabled. Board of Directors commentaries. Any board member wish to make any comments? Next meeting date is July the 17th. Having heard that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to adjourn. Could you call the roll, please?
Assistant Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Hollibush.
Yes.
Director Jewell.
Yes.
Director Hart.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes, we're adjourned.